Well, it's my opportunity to give an update for the board and for the community. And I, too, am excited about starting over and starting a new school year. That's one of the wonderful things about education, about teaching, about being in this occupation, is the opportunities to redo, to restart, to renew, etc. And this year, we are starting something that is new, something that I am so confident will help us to be even more strategic and to, as Mr. Baginski indicated, to move on the trajectory of going from good to great, that pathway. And for this year, and starting this week, as a matter of fact, starting today, we are implementing a process, a new assessment, where we are going to look at every child in grades 1 through 11 in the areas of reading, language, and mathematics to see where they are. We have encouraged teachers over the years to conduct pre-assessments at the beginning of the school year. But oftentimes what we have not seen is a global look across the district and to see it drill down to every child. We're excited about that. And I have to tell the board, and I have to thank and tell the community how grateful I am for every teacher, every administrator, and the Division of Instruction. There was such a serious effort and a synchronization of energy to implement this assessment and for it to be implemented today. I want to also thank our district administrative team, which happens to be led by Mr. Earl Dixon, George Chapp, DeVera, and Howard Buto. Earl Dixon was up until 3:30 this morning, ensuring that every one of our children was taken care of and that the data was uploaded. And I'm just grateful, and I'm grateful for the support of the board and the superintendent. With that, I would like to make sure that you have a little insight as to what our children are about to undergo. And I have invited for this evening Mr. Jim Coyle from Northwest Educational Assessment, who's going to give us a little insight into what our children are about to engage in, the Measures of Academic Progress Assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wood, and thank you for the invitation. We at NWEA, our mission, as you can see on the screen, is partnering to help all kids learn. So I'm going to do my 4-hour stint in 10 minutes or less tonight. So I'm going to try to condense it as much as I can. But I wanted to point out our mission, because the mission at NWEA and the mission that we like to extend to our partnering districts and to our public is focusing on all kids. It's not those kids who are less than proficient or those challenged learners. It's every child along our spectrum, from the very low achieving to the high achieving kids, because it's really all about growth for kids. And so as you're moving into this assessment, we're looking at a systemic approach to that assessment. And it's partnering, not only NWEA partnering with Southfield Public Schools and other schools in Michigan around the country, but it's also partnering with the kids. It's partnering with parents to extend that learning team beyond just the teacher and the student. So with that, I'd like to propose this analogy. Think about our assessment system as a student positioning system, much like a GPS, that's able to identify immediately as the kids sit at the computer, immediately identify where they're sitting instructionally. So the kids can take the assessment in reading, math, and language usage very quickly. And at the end of that time, what we're able to determine is the instructional level of the child on a scale. And with that student positioning system, we're able to identify where they are today and project where they need to be tomorrow and the day after and by the end of the year. So with that, we can provide a learning team. So if you're thinking about the assessment, the student positioning system, the system that the children in Southfield Public Schools are going to be using is called Measures of Academic Progress and Map for Primary Grades. It's a universal screener, so we look at all kids and identify where everyone is on this learning spectrum. It's adaptive. So it looks a little bit like this. As the kids sit at the computer, they're taking a test that's dynamically designed just for that individual student as they're taking the test. No two students will take any test that's identical. So right away, the kids become engaged, because as they answer questions correctly, they're getting higher level questions. As they're answering questions incorrectly, they're getting lower level questions. So the system adapts. And bottom line is, at the end of the assessment, the students understand where they are instructionally, and everybody on the learning team understands where the skills and concepts are that the kids need to learn today. It's a grade independent scale. So we're not looking at grade level. We're not trying to determine whether that third grader is proficient or that sixth grader is proficient. We're trying to determine where they're learning. Proficiency is important. It's important to understand the growth model. So with that, think about these two assessments as one test. Think about your first graders taking a test this week. They're going to start a test. They're going to finish their test in about half an hour to 45 minutes. They're going to get a score that's going to give them an instructional level, a list of skills and concepts for everybody on the learning team to focus on. It's going to give them a growth score saying, this is where I am today, and you know what? This is where I should be by the end of the year. So that student positioning system, because we're much better off, we can get to where we want to be if we really know where we want to go. So the system helps define where we want to go. So they finish the test in the fall. When they take a winter interim test, when they start their test, it starts where they left off. And it measures growth, and it measures how many skills that they've learned in that period of time. And it continues to do that until you end up testing, they take their last test in 11th grade. So they're taking one test that will start this week for those little first graders. They will continue that test for several years. So with that, think about our scale. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the scale, but what I want you to do is understand a little bit of the concept, because kids are competing against themselves. They're competing to learn new skills and to measure growth. So if we have 3 kids, Daniel, Grace, and Norm, they're all 5th grade kids. They take a test, they have different scores. What we immediately know is Norm has a 212 on our scale. He's right about on grade level with those skills in 5th grade that he should be learning. Daniel is a little less than confident learner. He has some growth. And what our system is able to do is identify what skills and concepts Daniel needs to be able to make that growth. And Grace, our high-achieving student, we want to continue Grace on the growth trajectory. And this is what it looks like. If you think about Daniel, our low-achieving student at the beginning of the year, if we look at typical growth for low-achieving kids, and we only look at what's typical, as we follow that line up, Daniel is still going to be less than grade level by the time he gets to grade 11. So what we need to do is identify the skills and concepts and look at that adjusted growth rate. Figure out how much he needs to grow to bring him up. I wish in the days that I was a teacher, I spent 30 years in public education, that I was able to identify exactly where every child in my classroom was sitting. Because I believe every teacher wants to be a better teacher. Every parent wants to be a better parent. So what we're helping you do is provide you with lists of skills and concepts to make that happen. At the other end of the spectrum, we have Grace, very high-achieving student. But what we know, what research shows about Grace is if we don't challenge Grace with new skills and concepts across grade levels, her growth actually declines a little bit across the years. So with that, teachers get the information the morning after testing. So if they tested today, tomorrow morning they're going to have access to that information. It will group kids according to the skills that they need to learn. Teachers can access this immediately, begin to drill down. It then provides information. We're going to look at one child up here so you can see one child in math, and then we begin to break the data apart to look at the skills and concepts that are most appropriate. And as we look at a student in this case, we're looking at a student like Daniel, a less than confident, low achieving student. We can see how he's doing in numbers and operations, how he's doing in algebra, how he's doing in geometry, and so on. And then by clicking on the student's name, we can provide information like this, not only for teachers, but for parents. Parents, how many of you in the room are parents? How many of you ask those good questions when kids walk in the door? Like, first of all, how was your day? What did you learn today? Tell me one significant thing that you learned today other than what you had for lunch that you liked or didn't like, or what happened on the playground. Think about, it's difficult for us to boil it down our whole day into 1 or 2 statements. So with this, Teachers will focus on anything in the middle column based on the student's skills and concepts. We want parents to become as involved in the kids' learning and have them have those lists that the teachers have that are going to focus on growth. Because again, if we know where we're going, we're much more likely to get there. So as you can see where the red arrow is, those are the skills and concepts that Daniel, as a 5th grade student, will be working on. In that same classroom, we have another student, Norm. Norm has a different score. Those are the skills and concepts that Daniel will be working on, because he's at a different level of learning. It's still talking about whole numbers in mathematics, but it's a different level of skill because that's what they're ready to learn today. Not every child's at the same place. And our 3rd student is Grace. That's what Grace is ready to learn. So parents, pick 1 or 2 of those things. Ask your kids about them. Challenge them with some games or some activities. In this case, rounds to the nearest million. Help your child round to the nearest million. Help your child order numbers through the billions using symbols. Help them identify and work with fractions. Some of those statements may be beyond my ability to work with my child. When my kids got to algebra, I said, guys, you're on your own. Dad can't help you there, but I could help you with the other stuff. So we know there's not going to be a lot, everything that parents can help with. And teachers won't be able to do all of it, but think about the power of the teachers and the kids and the parents having all the same information to focus on measuring growth, because it really is all about growth. So if you go back to our student positioning system and think about that, we've identified where kids are. And if we know where we're going, we're much more likely to get there. I drove in today. I could simply get in my car and drive around and hope that I find Southfield, Michigan, or I can plug it into my GPS and I call the little lady that talks to me, Susan, in the car. She tells me when I need to turn right, when I need to turn left. She creates that pathway to get me to where I want to go. We help teachers and parents create that pathway to help kids learn and focus on growth. So thank you for the opportunity to share that. If you have any questions, Dr. Wood, I'm sure, and Earl will have lots of answers for you, and I can always provide any information.
I want to thank you so much. Any questions by the board at this moment, or any questions now? Well, I'd like to just make sure that the board members and our community does know that on our website we have a little bit of information about this assessment and links that parents can visit and community members can visit to learn a little bit more before we have some additional community meetings, because we want everyone to understand about what we're doing instructionally with our students. Again, I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Quayle, for being here this evening. Thank you.
Okay.